trauma care. There are no national institutes for mental health care in North India. We will therefore set up a NIMHANS 2 and also upgrade national mental health institutes in Ranchi and in Tezpur as regional apex institutions. Emergencies expose families, particularly the poor and vulnerable, to unexpected expenditure. We will strengthen and increase these capacities by 50% in district hospitals by establishing emergency and trauma care centers. Focus on Purvodaya states and northeastern regions. Purvodaya, I propose the development of an integrated East Coast industrial corridor with a well-connected node at Durgapur, creation of 5 tourism destinations in 5 Purvodaya states, and the provision of 4,000 e-buses. Buddhist sites in northeastern region. The northeastern region is a civilizational confluence of Theravada and Mahayana or Vajrayana traditions. I propose to launch a scheme for development of Buddhist circuits in Arunachal Pradesh, Sikkim, Assam, Manipur, Mizoram and Tripura. The scheme will cover preservation of temples and monasteries, pilgrimage interpretation centers, connectivity and pilgrim amenities. 16th Finance Commission. On 17th November 2025, the 16th Finance Commission submitted its report to the President. As mandated under Article 281 of the Constitution, the government is to lay the report along with the explanatory memorandum on the action taken report on the recommendations of the Commission in Parliament, which, Sir, Honourable Speaker, you've allowed me to do at the commencement of this session. The government has accepted the recommendation of the Commission to retain the vertical share of devolution at 41%. As recommended by the Commission, I have provided 1.4 lakh crores of rupees to the states for the year 2026-2027 as Finance Commission grants. These include rural and urban local body and disaster management grants. Fiscal consolidation. Government has been delivering on our fiscal commitments consistently without compromising on social needs. To strive towards accepted standards of fiscal management in Budget 25-26, I had indicated that the central government would target reaching a debt to GDP ratio of 50 plus or minus 1% by 2030-31. In line with this, the debt to GDP ratio is estimated to be 55.6% of GDP in BE 26-27. compared to 56.1% of GDP in RE 25-26. A declining debt to GDP ratio will gradually free up resources for priority sector lending and expenditure by reducing the outgo on interest payments. One of the main operational instruments for debt targeting is the fiscal deficit. I am happy to inform this august House that I fulfilled my commitment made in 2021-2022 to reduce fiscal deficit below 4.5% of GDP by 25-26. In RE 25-26, the fiscal deficit has been estimated at par with BE of 2025-26 at 4.4% of GDP. In line with the new fiscal prudence path of debt consolidation, the fiscal deficit in BE 26-27 is estimated to be 4.3% of the GDP. The revised estimates of the non-debt receipts are 34 lakh crore rupees, of which the centre's net tax receipts are 26.7 lakh crore. The revised estimate of the total expenditure is 49.6 lakh crore rupees, of which the capital expenditure is about 11 lakh crores. Budget estimates 2026 to 2027. Coming to 26-27, the non-debt receipts and the total expenditure are estimated as 36.5 lakh crore and 53.5 lakh crore respectively. The centre's net tax receipts are estimated at 28.7 lakh crore rupees. To finance the fiscal deficit, the net market borrowings from dated securities are estimated at 11.7 lakh crore rupees. The balance financing is expected to come from small savings and other sources. The gross market borrowings are estimated at 17.2 lakh crore rupees. I'll now move to Part B. Part B, direct taxes. Honorable Speaker, sir, I now present my proposals on direct taxes. New Income Tax Act. In July 2024, I announced a comprehensive review of the Income Tax Act 1961. This was completed in a record time, and the Income Tax Act 2025 will come into effect from 1st April 2026. The simplified income tax rules and forms will be notified shortly, giving adequate time to taxpayers to acquaint themselves with its requirements. The forms have been redesigned such that ordinary citizens can comply without difficulty. Ease of living. I propose that any interest awarded by the Motor Accident Claims Tribunal to a natural person will be exempt from income tax, and any TDS on this account will be done away with. I propose to reduce TCS rate on the sale of overseas tour program package from the current 5% and 20% to 2% without any stipulation of amount. I propose to reduce TCS rate for pursuing education and for medical purposes under the Liberalized Remittance Scheme, popularly known as LRS, from 5% to 2%. Supply of manpower services is proposed to be specifically brought within the ambit of payment to contractors for the purpose of TDS to avoid ambiguity. Thus, TDS on these services will be at the rate of either 1% or 2% only. I propose a scheme for small taxpayers, wherein a rule-based automated process will enable obtaining a lower or nil deduction certificate instead of filing an application with the assessing officer. For the ease of taxpayer holding securities in multiple companies, I propose to enable depositories to accept Form 15G or Form 15H from the investor and provide it directly to various relevant companies. I propose to extend time available for revising returns from 31st December to up to 31st March with the payment of a nominal fee. I also propose to stagger the timeline for filing of tax returns. Individuals with ITR 1 and ITR 2 returns will continue to file till 31st July, and non-audit business cases or trusts are proposed to be allowed time till 31st August. TDS on sale of immovable through resident buyers and his or her PAN-based challan instead of requiring a TAN, which is a temporary accounting number. To address practical issues of small taxpayers like students, young professionals, tech employees, relocated NRIs, and such others, I propose to introduce a one-time 6-month foreign asset disclosure scheme for these taxpayers to disclose income or assets below a certain size. This scheme would be applicable for two categories of taxpayers, namely A, who did not disclose their overseas income or assets, and B, who disclosed their overseas income and or paid due tax but could not declare the asset acquired. For category A, the limit of undisclosed income or asset is proposed to be up to 1 crore rupees. They need to pay 30% of fair market value of asset or 30% of undisclosed income as tax and 30% as additional income tax in lieu of penalty, and would thereby get immunity from prosecution. For category B, asset value is proposed to be up to 5 crore rupees. Here, immunity from both penalty and prosecution will be available with a payment of fee of 1 lakh rupees. Rationalizing penalty and prosecution. Multiplicity of proceedings are hindrance to the ease of doing business. I propose to integrate assessment and penalty proceedings by way of a common order for both. There will be no interest liability on the taxpayer on the penalty amount for the period of appeal before the first appellate authority, irrespective of the outcome of appeal process. Further, quantum of prepayment is being reduced from 20% to 10% and will continue to be calculated only on core tax demand. As an additional measure for reducing litigation, I propose to allow taxpayers to update their returns even after reassessment proceedings have been initiated, and an additional 10% tax rate over and above the rate applicable for the relevant year. The assessing officer will then use only this updated return in his proceedings. There is already a framework for immunity from penalty and prosecution in the cases of underreporting. I propose to apply this framework for immunity to misreporting too. However, in such a case, the taxpayer will need to pay 100% of the tax amount as an additional income tax over and above the tax and interest due. Penalties for certain technical defaults, such as failure to get accounts audited, non-furnishing of transfer pricing audit report, and default in furnishing statement for financial transactions, are proposed to be converted into fee. I propose to rationalize prosecution framework under Income Tax Act while maintaining a careful balance for deterrence in some serious offence. Non-production of books of account and documents and requirement of TDS payment where payment is made in kind are being decriminalized. Further, minor offences will attract fine only. The remaining prosecutions will be graded commensurate with the quantum of offence. They will entail only simple imprisonment with maximum imprisonment reduced to 2 years and power to courts to convert even those into fines. There is no penalty. There is no penalty presently for non-disclosure of non-immovable foreign assets with aggregate value less than 20 lakh rupees. I propose to also provide them with immunity from prosecution with retrospective effect from 1/10/2024. Cooperatives. Deduction is already allowed to a primary cooperative society engaged in supplying milk, oilseeds, fruits or vegetables raised or grown by its members. I propose to extend this deduction to also include supply of cattle feed and cotton seed produced by its members. I propose to allow inter-cooperative society dividend income as deduction under the new tax regime to the extent it is further distributed to its members. I further propose to allow exemption for a period of 3 years to dividend income received by a notified national cooperative federation on their investments made in companies up to 31/1/2026. This exemption would be allowed only for dividends further distributed to its member cooperatives. Supporting IT sector as India's growth engine. India is a global leader in software development services, IT-enabled services, knowledge process outsourcing services, and contract R&D services relating to software development. These businesses and their segments are quite interconnected with each other. All these services are proposed to be clubbed under a single category of information technology services with a common safe harbor margin of 15.5% applicable to all. The threshold for availing safe harbor for IT services is being enhanced substantially from 300 crore rupees to 2,000 crore rupees. Safe harbor for IT services shall be approved by an automated rule-driven process without any need for tax officer to examine and accept the application. Once applied by an IT services company, the same safe harbor can be continued for a period of 5 years at a stretch at its choice. For IT services companies who want to conclude advanced pricing agreement, APA, I propose to fast-track unilateral APA process for IT services and endeavor to conclude it within a period of 2 years. The period of 2 years can be extended by a further period of 6 months on taxpayers' request. I propose to extend the facility of modified returns available to the entity entering APA to its associated entities also. Attracting global business and investment. Recognizing the need to enable critical infrastructure and boost investment in data centers, I propose to provide tax holiday till 2047 to any foreign company that provides cloud services to customers globally by using data center services from India. It will, however, need to provide services to Indian customers through an Indian reseller entity. I also propose to provide a safe harbor of 15% on cost in case the company providing data center services from India is a related entity. To harness the efficiency of just-in-time logistics for electronic manufacturing, I propose to provide safe harbor to non-residents for component warehousing in a bonded warehouse at a profit margin of 2% of the invoice value. The resultant tax of about 0.7% will be much lower than in competing jurisdictions. To provide fillip to toll manufacturing in India, I propose to provide exemption from income tax for 5 years to any non-resident who provides capital goods, equipment, or tooling to any toll manufacturer in a bonded zone. To encourage vast pool of global talent to work in India for a longer period of time, I propose to provide exemption to global, non-India sourced income of a non-resident expert for a stay period of 5 years under notified schemes. I propose to provide exemption from minimum alternate tax, the MAT, to all non-residents who pay tax on presumptive basis. Tax administration. I propose to constitute a joint committee of Ministry of Corporate Affairs and Central Board of Direct Taxes for incorporating the requirements of income computation and disclosure standards, the ICDS, in the Indian Accounting Standards, IND AS itself. Separate accounting requirement based on ICDS will be done away with from the tax year 27-28. To support Prime Minister Modi's vision of homegrown accounting and advisory firms to become global leaders, I propose to rationalize the definition of accountant for the purposes of safe harbor rules. Other tax proposals. Change in taxation of buyback was brought in to address the improper use of buyback route by promoters. In the interest of minority shareholders, I propose to tax buyback for all types of shareholders as capital gains. However, to disincentivize misuse of tax arbitrage, promoters will pay an additional buyback tax. This will make effective tax 22% for corporate promoters. For non-corporate promoters, the effective tax will be 30%. TCS rate for sellers of specific goods, namely alcoholic liquor, scrap and minerals, will be rationalized to 2%, and that on tendu leaves will be reduced from 5% to 2%. I propose to raise the STT on futures to 0.05% from the present 0.02%. STT on options premium and exercise of options are both proposed to be raised to 0.15% from the present rate of 0.1% and 0.125% respectively. We reformed the taxation landscape for corporates in 2019 by providing them a simplified regime with lower tax rate so that they could productively focus on business rather than on claim of deductions and exemptions. To encourage companies to shift to the new regime, set off of brought forward MAT credit, minimum alternate tax credit, is proposed to be allowed to companies only in the new regime. Set off using available MAT credit is proposed to be allowed to an extent of 1/4 of the tax liability in the new regime. MAT is proposed to be made final tax, so there will be no further credit accumulation from 1st April 2026. In line with this change, the rate of final tax is being reduced to 14% from the current MAT rate of 15%. The brought forward MAT credit of taxpayers accumulated till 30th March 2026 will continue to be available to them for set off as above. Indirect taxes. I shall now take up proposals related to indirect taxes. My proposals for customs and central excise aim to further simplify the tariff structure, support domestic manufacturing, promote export competitiveness, and correct inversion in duty. To continue weeding out long continuing customs duty exemptions, I propose to remove certain exemptions on items which are being manufactured in India or where the imports are negligible. Similarly, to further simplify the process of ascertaining the rate of duty applicable on a particular item, I propose to incorporate certain effective rates in various customs notifications to the tariff schedule itself. I shall now take up sector-specific proposals. Promotion of exports of marine, leather, and textile products. I propose to increase the limit for duty-free imports of specified inputs used for processing seafoods for export from the current 1% to 3% of FOB value of the previous year's export turnover. I also propose to allow duty-free imports of specified inputs which is currently available for exports of leather or synthetic footwear to exports of shoe uppers as well. I propose to extend the time period for export of final product from the existing 6 months to 1 year for exporters of leather or textile garments, leather or synthetic footwear and other leather products. Energy transition and security. I propose to extend the basic customs duty exemption given to capital goods used for manufacturing lithium-ion cells for batteries to those used for manufacturing lithium-ion cells for battery energy storage systems also. I propose to exempt basic customs duty on import of sodium antimonate for use in manufacture of solar glass. Nuclear power. I propose to extend the existing basic customs duty exemption on imports of goods required for nuclear power projects till the year 2035 and expand it for all nuclear plants irrespective of their capacity. Critical minerals. It is proposed to provide basic customs duty exemption to the import of capital goods required for the processing of critical minerals in India. Biogas blended CNG. I propose to exclude the entire value of biogas while calculating the central excise duty payable on biogas blended CNG. Civil and defense aviation. I propose to exempt basic customs duty on components and parts required for the manufacture of civilian training and other aircrafts. It is proposed to exempt basic customs duty on raw materials imported for the manufacture of parts of aircraft to be used in maintenance, repair, or overall requirements by units in the defense sector. Electronics. To deepen value addition in the consumer electronics sector, I propose to exempt basic customs duty on specified parts used in the manufacture of microwave ovens. Special economic zone. To address the concerns arising about utilization of capacity by manufacturing units in the special economic zones due to global trade disruptions, I propose as a special one-time measure to facilitate sales by eligible manufacturing units in SEZs to the domestic tariff area at concessional rates of duty. The quantity of such sales will be limited to a prescribed proportion of their exports. Necessary regulatory changes will be undertaken to operationalize the measures while ensuring level playing field for the units working in the DTA. Ease of living. To rationalize the customs duty structure for goods imported for personal use, I propose to reduce the tariff rate on all dutiable goods imported for personal use from 20% to 10%. To provide relief to patients, particularly those suffering from cancer, I propose to exempt basic customs duty on 17 drugs or medicines. I propose also to add 7 more rare diseases for the purposes of exempting import duties on personal imports of drugs, medicines, and food for special medical purposes used in their treatment. Customs process. India's role and share in the global trade is poised for a major leap in line with our ambition and journey towards Vikasit Bharat. In this regard, I propose many measures for custom processes to have minimal intervention for smoother and faster movement of goods and greater certainty to the trade. Trust-based systems. I propose to enhance duty deferral period For Tier 2 and Tier 3 authorized economic operators, known as AEOs, from 15 days to 30 days. I propose to provide eligible manufacturer importers the same duty deferral facility. This should encourage them to get themselves accredited as a full-fledged Tier 3 AEO in due course. To provide greater certainty and for better business planning, I propose to extend validity period of advance ruling binding on customs from the present 3 years to 5 years. In the spirit of the whole of government approach, government agencies will be encouraged to leverage AEO accreditation for preferential treatment in clearing their cargo. Regular importers with trusted, long-standing supply chains will be recognized in the risk system so that the need for verification of their cargo every time can be minimized. Export cargo using electronic sealing. Export cargo using electronic sealing will be provided through clearance from the factory premises to the ship. For import of goods not needing any compliance, filing of bill of entry by a trusted importer and arrival of goods will automatically notify customs for completing their clearance formalities. This will enable goods to be released immediately on arrival. The customs warehouse framework will be transformed into a warehouse operator-centric system with a self-declarations, electronic tracking, and risk-based audit. These reforms will move away from the current system of officer-dependent approvals and reduce transaction delays and compliance costs. Ease of doing business. Approvals required for cargo clearance from various government agencies will be seamlessly processed through a single and interconnected digital window by the end of the financial year. Processes involved in clearance of food, drugs, plant, and animal and wildlife products, accounting for about 70% of interdicted cargo, will be operationalized on this system by April 2026 itself. For goods not having any compliance requirement, clearance will be done by customs immediately after online registration is completed by the importer, subject to the payment of duty. Customs integrated system will be rolled out in 2 years as a single integrated and scalable platform for all customs processes. Utilization of non-intrusive scanning with advanced imaging and AI technology for risk assessment will be expanded in a phased manner with the objective to scan every container across all the major ports. New export opportunities to support Indian fishermen to fully harness the economic value of marine resources beyond our territorial waters. The following measures will be taken. A. Fish catch by an Indian fishing vessel in exclusive economic zone or on the high seas will be made free of duty. Landing of such fish on foreign port will be treated as export of goods. Safeguards will be put in place to prevent misuse during fish catch, transit, or transshipment. To support aspirations of India's small businesses, artisans, and startups to access global markets through e-commerce, I am pleased to announce complete removal of the current value cap of 10 lakh rupees per consignment on courier exports. In addition, handling of rejected and returned consignments will be improved with effective use of technology for identifying such consignments. I propose to revise provisions governing baggage clearance during international travel to address genuine concerns of passengers. The revised rules will enhance duty-free allowances in line with the present-day travel realities and provide clarity in temporary carriage of goods brought in or taken out. There are honest taxpayers who are willing to settle disputes by paying all their dues, but they get deterred due to negative connotation associated with penalty. They will now be able to close cases by paying an additional amount in lieu of penalty. Honorable Speaker, sir, with this, I commend the budget to this august House. Jai Hind. One and a half hours.
आइटम नंबर 3 माननीय वित्त मंत्री जी।
Item number 2, sir.
3.
Sir, with your permission, I rise to lay on the table of the following statements under Section 3, 1 of the Fiscal Responsibility and Budget Management Act of 2003. Medium-term fiscal policy cum fiscal policy strategy statement and macroeconomic framework statement.
Item number 4 माननीय वित्त मंत्री जी।
Sir, with your permission, I move for leave to introduce the Finance Bill 2026.
प्रश्न ये कि विधेयक को पुनर्स्थापित करने की अनुमति प्रदान की जाए। जो सदस्य इस पक्ष में हाँ गए, जो सदस्य विरोध में ना गए, मेरे विचार में निर्णय हाँ वालों के पक्ष में, हाँ वालों के पक्ष में अनुमति प्रदान की जाती है। माननीय मंत्री जी, आप विधेयक पुनर्स्थापित करें।
Sir, I introduce the bill.
माननीय सदस्यगण, आपको सूचित किया जाता है कि माननीय वित्त मंत्री जी के बजट भाषण की कॉपी पब्लिकेशन काउंटर पर ली जाती है। बजट भाषण और बजट से संबंधित दस्तावेज आपके मोबाइल फोन और मेंबर पोर्टल्स पर ही उपलब्ध है। सभा की कार्रवाई कल सोमवार दिनांक 2 फरवरी 2026 को प्राप्त 11 बजे तक के लिए स्थगित की जाती है।
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that was Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman in a speech that lasted 86 minutes at the last count. Among the shorter speeches, she has once done a 2 hours and 40-minute speech as well. The big announcements in the budget, some structural reforms, some infrastructure spending, a lot of emphasis that is being given to sectors where India can make a difference. But let's take a quick reaction around the table for what their biggest takeaways in this election were all about. The markets, as you can see, right now still trying to decipher. It is 1,000 points down, not really a big thumbs up yet. We're still waiting to watch how the markets react, but right now in the red. Monica Hallan, for you, biggest takeaway this budget, do you think it sets the pace for the kind of structural change in the growth momentum?
I think it's a work in progress budget. It is more, it's just like continuation of what has been happening in the past. I think the big story has played out already. This is just the nitty-gritty. They're trying to ease up all the wrinkles in the system. If you notice, a lot of the budget speech has been about taking this compliance away, taking away this decriminalizing offenses. So I think it's really in that place. The reason markets are down is because they have increased the STT on futures and options.
From 0.002 to 0.005, is that a lot?
No, in the sense this is bad for speculators and traders more than pure investors. It's just that there was a promise made long back by then Finance Minister Chidambaram that we will make your long-term capital gains zero if there is a STT. But then STT has remained and capital gains has come back. I am just glad that they have not tinkered with the rate right now. There was a pressure to increase the capital gains on equity. That they have not done. So see, there's no big tinkering with the taxes as expected. So it's really a work in progress.
If you're a common lady at home looking to ease up the pressure on her wallet, as a household, do you think there are any big announcements?
The inflation number is the lowest that I can remember. So I don't know where this complaint of
no, this is
high
not a complaint.
inflation,
It's always an expectation.
No, but look, your inflation rate is the lowest that I can remember. So if you take gold out of the CPI, you're actually in negative territory. The real return that you're getting on fixed deposit is the highest that I can ever remember. So there is an inflation expectation built in our heads, which is not really what we are seeing in the CPI data.
Okay, all right. So Anand Ranganathan, if you were in my shoes, what would your headline be today?
You remove the shoes and hit the finance.
Terribly large shoes to fill. No,
yeah, I have a large size.
no, look, I think today's budget, I would rate 8 out of 10. And I'll tell you why. It's about rearranging deck chairs at 2 locations. One is rearranging deck chairs so to look at the sunrise or the sunset or in front of the ocean, relax and watch India progress. And the other is rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic. As far as rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic is concerned, there is nothing about privatization, nothing about disinvestment. It is about restructuring public sector units. As I said, restructuring PSUs that take up about 20% of our annual allocation or budget is like rearranging deck chairs on Titanic. But as far as rearranging deck chairs to look at India progress, sunrise, I think there are a few very great decisions, I would say. Pharma sector gets a big fillip. You have the tax.
The bio-organic pharma sector.
Yes, I think that's great for drugs. And I think it's opening up this sector, which is very important. Drugs, pharmaceuticals. There are, I think, import relaxations on cancer drugs. So that sector has been addressed. A lot of other sectors have been addressed. For example, data centers, you have a tax break till 2047. That's a good thing. That will be a fillip. But at the end of the day, please remember that you have already very few jigsaws to play with. I mean, 25%.
Well, I don't know which jigsaw the markets are looking at. Yeah. At the moment, almost 200 points or thereabouts down. 1,594 points down.
Yes.
That's not a good sign, Anand. Or would you worry about it? Or
no, I would not particularly worry about it. What were they expecting that would have raised it?
Jaggi?
Yeah, I think the markets have been going down for a while, except for the domestic institutions which are anyway buying a lot of shares that others were selling. So it was bound to go down. I think the market was expecting some kind of accommodation on LTCG or some other tax gains, which have not come. So it's more a mismatch of expectations rather than anything real. Don't worry, tomorrow they'll recalibrate, start looking at the fine print and do the right things. Yeah. So my broad take was this budget is about continuing with a direction, not about speed. It is not about a reform express, but the idea is to oil the wheels of all the little carriages going all around. Its philosophy is that if you make multiple small improvements in multiple places, ultimately the net result will add up to something exponential, is the hope. Okay, so it's about fixing the plumbing, removing the corroded pipes and ones that is choking growth. Ultimately, the assumption is that finally it will all come together and make the growth faster.
So it's a spring cleaning budget rather than a big bang budget. You're taking care of the nuts and bolts and plugging the leakages, cleaning the drains, that kind. And nobody ever gets any marks for housekeeping, really, Gurcharan Das. So do you think required to do that? And that's what is being done?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't use the word house cleaning because it doesn't have quite the connotation of moving
housekeeping,
up.
I said.
Housekeeping. It doesn't have the connotation of actually moving up. Because I think that, and as I said in the beginning, I will evaluate this budget purely on the basis of how it makes our country competitive, export competitive. That to me is the critical thing for getting jobs, for bringing jobs in the country and creating an industrial revolution. So The steps, there were steps, maybe small steps like municipal bonds will make urban bodies more independent and more empowered. There's a lot more to be done in that area to have empowered mayors, etc. But this is a good step. Then the push for AI. I think AI represents a huge opportunity. There are negatives, of course, but AI represents a very big opportunity in education and health. Every child can have a personal tutor. Every mother can have a personal doctor, and so on. The idea of girls' hostels in every district. Now, I would do it in a PPP way, the way Apple, iPhone did it. It was a brilliant thing they did, this 18,000 girls' hostel for the iPhone. I think that should be done along with industry. And industry should also pay something for that hostel. So these are good ideas. China has implemented them brilliantly. Duty-free imports for products for export. The MAT to be the final rate, again, brings clarity, brings predictability. The exemption of little thing, but very important, exemption of duty on capital goods for critical mineral mining, important. Then I think that on in the whole area of customs, there's a fair amount of cleanup.
Yes.
Cleanup of simplifying the procedures, digitizing end-to-end the import. I think it will help make us more competitive. I wish she had sorted out the inverted pyramid in customs duty in terms of products.
We'll take a look because she's expected to address a press conference at 2:30 p.m. this afternoon. But let's get the sense from India Inc. on whether their expectations have been met. Sanjay Budhia, Chairman CII National Committee on Exports, joining us this afternoon. Also joining us is R. Mukundan, President Designate CII and Managing Director and CEO of Tata Chemicals. Mr. Mukundan, first to you. What do you think about the budget? A lot of painstaking effort being put to clean up the system, to make it stronger for the next big phase of growth that this country needs to get into. But many are looking at it in terms of no big bang announcement and the markets down. How do you look at the budget announcements?
Thank you. In fact, I've been saying for quite some time that this should be a build-forward budget, not a big bang budget. So I think you should look at it as a build-forward budget. There's a strong foundation already laid down. I think she spoke about broadly two themes. One is continuing the momentum on growth. At the same time, she used a very important word called integrate. Integrate with the external economy to export as well as attract investment. And I think that's been the key focus. So when we talk about integration with the external economy, a lot of focus and emphasis we had wanted on the customs in the indirect area. I think that has been done. And a lot of irritants which were there in the current taxation structure had to be addressed. Many minor items like TDS, TCS, those have been addressed. Now, in terms of the key focus areas, what we had highlighted was issues around manufacturing, MSME, and also related to what we called as infrastructure and urbanization. India is going to urbanize at a rapid rate. And to that extent, I think she actually chose 7 broad themes to work on, which is to scale manufacturing, rejuvenate industrial, legacy industries, MSME, infrastructure, security and stability, and city economic region. So to a large extent, there have been many schemes announced in this, and I think we need to ensure that we implement them fast, implement them quickly, and I think that would go a long way. Fundamentally, I think the way we should think about this budget is a build-forward budget, not a big bang budget.
Would you want to rate the budget? Normally, we do try and get numbers. Anand Ranganathan already saying 8 on 10. What's your scorecard?
No, I wouldn't rate any budget because each budget comes with a context they are living in. I mean, if you start rating budget which was done when we wanted a big taxation change versus a budget which has been done when we want to integrate along with the global world, I think we would get the whole dynamics wrong. And also this whole point about what is the stock market doing immediately the minute after a budget is announced, I think is probably not the right way. We should see the impact of the budget in terms of investment. So the objective of this budget is to integrate with the external economy, to continue the growth momentum despite the external challenge. And if we are able to deliver that in the next 12 months in the short term, and also ensure in the long term we are able to address the issue of integrating with external economy, I think we would have done the job. And I think that's exactly the focus here when you talk about focus on infrastructure, focus on logistics, focus on building industrial parks, rejuvenating legacy industrial parks, and also focusing on some critical sectors which have huge potential like semiconductors, electronics. I think she's highlighted a whole slew of effort. At the same time, I think there's a third priority they had, which is to say that we need to make this a citizen budget, which is why the focus on fishermen, the farmer. I think it should be seen in the context of the various elements the government is trying to balance. On one hand, the urbanizing, industrializing India. At the same time, the large, vast majority of India which still depends on agriculture for its income, large, vast majority of India which is dependent on various other resources, including, the tribals, the whole issue of fishermen. I think she's tried to address all that in a very, very positive way. There's a strong boost to tourism, and I think that is very critical. The internal tourism, domestic tourism is a long ignored area. I think that is now actually one of the most booming sectors and also generating employment. So there's a whole series of focus in terms of what we call as the religious tourism as well as nature trails, which are all going to boost the areas where we actually not have explored. So to a large extent, I would say, in the context of where we are doing this budget is aiming to do exactly what it intended to do.
Well said, Mr. Budhia. To you, I want to ask, Mr. Gursharan Das, right from the start of this debate on the budget, has been insisting that he would only test this budget on the foundations of whether or not it makes India more competitive to export as well as have domestic investments to increase employment. On that cornerstone, how would you rate this budget?
I think this budget is really a big booster for India's exports and to make exports competitive. As all of us know, India is the flavor, and world is looking at India to be the manufacturing hub. And under the present situation, Mr. Mukundan, our president, has tabulated most of the measures. I would like to say that the reliance on SCZ, sizable investment has been made in India's special economic zones, which are not fully utilized. So the utilization of that capacity to supply to DTA areas up to a certain percentage will be a big boost, and that would be very, very effectively utilized. Similarly, exempting inverted duty structures on certain products which will be announced, and also making self-reliant. The budget emphasizes on the trust, on the continuity, and fast-tracking our progress, which should be implemented and supplemented by putting the trust in India Inc. and in the Indians in general. I would like to also touch that I am the father of a child with special needs, and this budget specifically talks about Dimension and mental health and establishment.
Yes, it's a sensitive budget, absolutely a sensitive budget on that score. Well, some of the takeaways, the big, okay, all right, hands going up.
Couple of things. This is a budget great on ideas. To that extent, I agree with Dr. Ranganathan, 8 on 10, but very vague on specifics, so vague on specifics. So, for example, the rare earth mineral. Now, we all know, and Dr. Das spoke about, the future is AI technology, and we need rare earth for that and for our future technology. Now, they've announced this corridor for these 4 states. They've said that, look, the material that comes in will be tax-free or exempted from duties. But if you don't get environment clearances, in Jammu, we have lithium deposits. It's over 6 years. It's the same government. It's a double-engine government. You haven't got clearance to start mining. If you don't have a single window system, you aren't going to go forward. 90% plus is controlled by China. So you can't have these great announcements, have claps in parliament and not have a specific idea. That doesn't make you ready for the future.
Well, are there claps in Parliament? Let's look at the first reactions coming in from Parliament. Tehseen, at least you warmed my heart by expecting claps in Parliament. But let's listen in. Congress Member of Parliament Imran Masood and his takeaway from this budget.
इमरान मसूद है हमारे साथ बात करने के लिए। इमरान भाई, बजट कैसा लगा?
खाली, कुछ भी नहीं है, खाली डब्बा है। आप उम्मीद कर रहे थे कि टैरिफ की मार झेल रहे हैं एक्सपोर्टर, कुछ राहत मिलेगी, जो अमेरिका को एक्सपोर्ट हो रहा था उनको कुछ राहत देने का काम करेंगे, लेकिन खाली डब्बा हाथ में, जिक्र भी नहीं किया। ना मुरादाबाद के लिए, ना सहारनपुर के लिए, ना भदोही के लिए कोई जिक्र नहीं है उन सेक्टर्स के लिए जिन सेक्टर्स के अंदर एक्सपोर्ट अमेरिका हो रहा था, कोई जिक्र नहीं है। नौजवान खाली हाथ, किसान के बारे में कोई चर्चा नहीं, किसान की फसल के बारे में कोई चर्चा नहीं, तो दिया क्या आपने? खाली डब्बा।
केरल पर चर्चा हुई, केरल के लिए उन्होंने घोषणा की, पश्चिम बंगाल के लिए कहा।
घोषणा की ना पश्चिम बंगाल के लिए ना केरल के लिए, क्या घोषणा की? क्या घोषणा की बताइए ना। कोई कुछ है ही नहीं बजट के अंदर। बजट खाली डब्बा है। पहले हम सोच रहे थे कि खाली डब्बे में पुराना माल होगा, इसमें से तो पुराना माल भी निकाल लिया, अब तो डब्बा ही डब्बा दे दिया।
ठीक। कांग्रेस सांसद।
Well, if you expected any other reaction, you know, first I have to take your reaction, Anand Ranganath. खाली डब्बा, पुराना माल भी नहीं है, वो भी निकाल लिया।
नहीं, इमरान जी ठीक कह रहे हैं, कुछ बोटियां तो देनी चाहिए थी, बोटी भी निकाल ली उन्होंने। No, but
I can give you one number. The budget documents have just dropped. So the defense spend, not as percentage of GDP, but percent of the budget. Okay, how much of the budget is being spent on defense has been a consistent 8% for the last 6 years. This year it's up to 11%. Okay, so that's a big one that you have really ramped up.
So defense budget goes up to 11% of the budget, not the 8%. So that's a substantial rise. Shashi Tharoor responding.
वो तो होना चाहिए, वैसे भी फिशरीज में हमें कुछ बेनिफिट होना चाहिए, लेकिन जब शिप रिपेयर के बारे में बोला और वाराणसी और पटना के बारे में बोला, केरला के बारे में कुछ नहीं सुन सका, तो ये सब हमें ज़रा सा आश्चर्यजनक है। लेकिन ये भी कहूँ कि शायद डिटेल्स बजट डॉक्यूमेंट में होंगे, हम पढ़ा नहीं, अब तक सिर्फ भाषण सुने हैं। भाषण में तो बहुत कम डिटेल्स है जो हमें ज़रूरी थी।
चलिए, शशि थरूर साहब हमारे साथ हैं। थरूर साहब,
नंबर देंगे, बजट पूरा बजट सुना।
यही हाल रहा तो लोहे पर पीतल चढ़ा करके जेवर बनाने पड़ेंगे। और ये बजट गरीब के समझ के बाहर है। जो बुनियादी चीजें हैं, शिक्षा, स्वास्थ्य, आप सोचिए उत्तर प्रदेश का हाल आपने सुना होगा, देखा होगा। पोस्टमार्टम होना है किसका, और पोस्टमार्टम के लिए ले किसको जा रहे हैं? ओटी में जाना किसको था, ले किसको जा रहे हैं? ये तो स्वास्थ्य व्यवस्था का हाल है। और शिक्षा का हालत ये है कि बिना शिक्षा के हम विकसित भारत कैसे बनाएंगे? विकसित भारत का सपना अगर देखना है तो शिक्षा क्षेत्र में हमें ज्यादा से ज्यादा बजट देना पड़ेगा। ये समझ से बाहर बजट है, ये सपने दिखाने वाला बजट है। जिन लोगों ने अपने पुराने घोषणा पत्र पे कोई काम न किया, उनसे उम्मीद क्या करोगे? बीजेपी से उम्मीद ही नहीं तो बजट से उम्मीद क्या करेंगे?
कितने नंबर देंगे बजट को? आपने पूरा बजट सुना।
Well, रोहित आजाद, सोने पे पीतल चढ़ाने वाला बजट है। How do you respond to Akhilesh Yadav and what are your takeaways?
I think rhetorics aside, this budget is quite run of the mill. I think the government has seen that 2026 is going to be 2025. It's not so easy. There is a lot of political uncertainty. The year started with an ominous sign. Trump picked up a president, took him away. So we don't know what it holds out for the world. Global economy is perhaps not necessarily going to give you the demand that you need. So it was a bit disappointing that on the fiscal side of it, which actually provides domestic demand, the government has not really
but they've just done a boost by GST
one factual thing I would like to, because middle class, last year's budget was all about the middle class tax rebate. And the idea was that it is going to, because there's a decline in tax buoyancy is going to go up. Now look at the numbers. The budget estimate, the actual collection that has been done on taxes of income has gone down drastically. just the nominal numbers, forget about as a proportion of GDP. So it was announced 1.4, if I'm not mistaken, 43 lakh crores. It has come to 1.31. Not corporate tax, I'm talking about taxes on income. So tax buoyancy that you expect, which is what you expected, what you announce versus what you get is not so clear. In this case, this is what has happened. So there may be many announcements you can promise the moon.
All right.
I want to continue to criticize the government. Just one line, sir. I think this is one of the most shameless things that this government is, and I'm going to be very harsh, is they're destroying the bull run of the stock markets. Now, it is, when you said early in the morning, it is people like us with our SIPs that are keeping the market away. They didn't remove long-term capital gains. They didn't remove short-term capital gains. They have now increased the STT. The problem with this government is at a time when FPI is exiting the markets and we are holding the markets, they are completely treating us as your voice will be crushed. This is a government of Babus determined to destroy the stock market. I have never seen a country, a government so determined to destroy a wealth-creating market that is actually giving positive returns.
Well, I don't think it's so black, Gursharan Das, is it?
Yeah, no, I don't, I mean, I wouldn't use the words that he has used, but I would say, no, but I would say that, that the comment made on just now, yeah, that let's take the farmer, the voice of the farmer. Now they are not able to introduce the farm laws right away. I can understand that, which would have really given freedom to the farmer. But what they could have done is low-hanging fruit. And just to give you one example, that 1/3 of the fresh vegetables and fruit rot on the farm. We all know that, and Ashok Gulati has been crying hoarse about it for years. Now this is a low.
May I correct you? Decades.
Sorry?
He's been crying for decades to build cold storages.
Not build, but every country has solved this problem because they allowed major retailers or e-commerce. In recent years, it was e-commerce. Now we have a very simple. We have e-commerce players in India who are very successful, and all you allow, if you allowed them to carry inventory from the farm to the store, to the consumer, you've done it. And the farmer would have gained 1,50,000 crores. You're talking about increasing farmer income. This would be a big deal. And it's a very simple thing. Where
Now, with a couple of things, no, I completely agree. And incidentally, the second farm law, the reform, was to do away with the emergency provisions of the Essential Commodities Act.
Exactly.
You know, overnight, the so-called babus would convert storage to holding. So nobody wanted to build these godowns. And as a result, 70 million tons of Indian agricultural produce goes waste every year, 30% of all fruits and vegetables. But I want to ask, if you want reforms, where is the tax on agricultural income? The government would have earned 3 lakh crores every year, but it's just afraid to do it. The greatest steps are the ones that should be taken first. But the problem is, in this country,
Anand Ranganathan, I think you're expecting, in this country, decisions to be taken almost as if one nation, one election.
On merit, not reservation.
One nation, one election is a reality. Agriculture income, farm laws, we've seen what happened. The intent was there, but the political backlash was so bad that to again begin to expect it to come back, either you are naive or you're expecting, कि सचमुच कलयुग में कृष्ण जी प्रकट होंगे और अपना चक्र चलाएंगे. It doesn't work that way in the real world. However, look at the number of announcements that have been made. Look at the pharma one that you spoke about. Look at AI. Look at also what they've said in terms of data centers and the cloud working. These are all potential businesses that will be big businesses in the times to come.
मैंने 4 नहीं दिया ना.
I gave 8. You had given
because
8
I know the government
you
is
had
not
given
going
8
to
on 10, but then you suddenly, out of that 2 that you took away, if you keep agriculture tax as the reason why